of people's sufferings. More than you and I could ever imagine because we've never experienced this. And here, you read the rest of Job and you read all the things that he went through. It's amazing. It goes on for chapters. But it says, verse 7, Satan went out from the presence of the Lord, smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, all over his body. He took a potsherd. A potsherd was a piece of broken pottery. And it says he scraped himself while he was sitting among the ashes. In other words, he went the same place that lepers go when they have been declared to have leprosy. And he's taking a piece of broken pottery and he's scratching himself. Can you imagine if you've ever had the chicken pox, how bad that is, or anything that causes you to itch, and it's all over your body and you're just going, I'm going nuts here, you know? But it says, verse 9, of course, what I read a moment ago, his wife said to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. And look what his response is. He said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity? And in all this, Job did not sin with his lips. He didn't charge God. He didn't say anything against God. In fact, you go back to where it says in verse 21, blessed be the name of the Lord. He had nothing but good things to say about God. He spoke well of God. He didn't accuse him. He didn't even remotely accuse him like James 1:13 refers to when it says that when you are tempted, let no one say to himself, I am tempted by God. God cannot be tempted by evil, and He tempts no man. Psalm 23 tells us in that wonderful psalm, the Lord is my shepherd. You know that psalm. It says, He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. God does not lead anyone into sin. Doesn't lead anyone into sin. And therefore, you and I can worship Him when we go through the tough times, the adversity, the trials. That's why James could write in James 1:3, consider it all joy when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, but let endurance have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God who gives to all men liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. Let not that man suppose that he'll receive anything from the Lord. We can count it all joy. We can worship. But Satan says, no, you can't. No, you can't. He will even send people like these three friends of Job's. The greatest wisdom that these three friends gave Job was when they were silent for 7 days. When they opened up their mouth, all folly came out of it. They were a discouragement to him. Look at verse 11. When Job's three friends heard of all this adversity that had come upon him, they came each one from his own place, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, Zophar the Naamathite, and they made an appointment together to come to sympathize with him and comfort him. Good motives. Want to be there for this brother and what he's going through. When they lifted up their eyes at a distance, did not recognize him, they raised their voices and wept. They had true sympathy for him. They had true compassion for him. Each of them tore his robe. They threw dust over their heads toward the sky. And then they sat down on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights with no one speaking a word to him, for they saw that his pain was very great. There's sometimes when I've been in the hospital with somebody and I have not a single word to say. And I don't say anything. I understand that. You don't know what to say. You're overwhelmed at the adversity you see them experiencing. But this was the best that they could do for him. Because when you start reading the different things that they said, that was an encouragement. They had believed that he had sinned. And that's why all this came upon him. Job didn't sin. God said 2 times about him that he was a blameless man, upright, fearing God, turning away from evil. He holds fast to his integrity. Even in the situation of his wife saying, curse God and die, he says, you speak like one of the foolish women. And he didn't even heed her advice. Though she was in great pain. There's nothing here other than what she said here. And I'm sure she said that out of her pain. She just lost 7 sons and 3 daughters. And in our pain, we say some of the most off-the-wall things because of the depth of the sorrow of our soul. But you know, Job didn't. So to say he had it under control here. You know what I mean? Think about all this. John MacArthur says, emboldened by the success that Satan had with the unfallen Adam in paradise, he was confident that the fear of God in Job, one of a fallen race, would not stand his test. It would not stand. He was confident. We could say overconfident. He was presumptuous. Again, this is what he seeks to do to you and me. In one day, Job was stripped of his wealth. One after another, 4 frightened messengers reported the 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, 3,000 camels were stolen in enemy raids, 7,000 sheep were struck by lightning and killed, and all 10 of his children were killed by a windstorm. Solomon was right when he said this in Ecclesiastes 9:12. Moreover, no man knows when his hour will be. As fish are caught in a cruel net, or birds are taken in a snare, so men are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them. That's just like trials. It says in James chapter 1 about the trials, it says you can count it all joy whenever you fall. And the whenever you fall, it has the idea that you can't pinpoint when it's going to happen. You can't determine it beforehand. If you and I could determine beforehand that we are going to go through this trying situation, then we can prepare for it, can't we? But since you don't know when they're going to happen, you can prepare for that now. Knowing the right thing about God, the truths about God and His Word, knowing that He is a faithful and covenant-keeping God, and not listening to your heart, nor listening to the lies that come through Satan. Satan will use lies and speak them through other people. You know, it's like this that we say. You get around somebody that's complaining, after a while you'll start complaining. And in the beginning, you didn't feel like that. You didn't feel like that at all. But all of a sudden, now you're doing it. Because that was the influence. Do the opposite situation. Get around a brother or sister who, like Job, is not cursing God with his lips, not sinning against God in the adversity that he's going through, and you will get great strength from that as well. Here's the problem. What do you do when no one's around? When there's no one around. Here's the kind of stuff your mind will feed you when you're alone. Nobody cares about me. Nobody ever calls me. I'm all by myself. Going through this all by myself. Why am I going through this? Does God not love me? Does God hate me? You ever felt like that? If you've never felt like that, I tend to think maybe you're not human. You know? So I think we've all felt like that. Maybe more often than others. See, Job knew what had happened, but he did not know why it had happened. That's the crux of the matter, isn't it? We know what happens, but we don't always know why it happened. And we can go to those passages like in James 1, where it says, knowing that the testing of your faith's being tested. It's being tried. It's being like 1 Peter 1:7, tried as gold. They would take gold and they'd sift all the dross off of it, and you'd have pure gold. Well, God is sifting all the dross